I looked at her and I said, "Mom, I effing hate you. My name is Kyle, and this is my fight." When I was young, my mom was bringing me to DNA testing centers where we were trying to figure out who my father was. It was actually between 13 or so different men that my father could have been. When I was 8 years old, we ended up finding out that the man I knew of as my father was found dead laying on a couch. We then find out that he had an accidental overdose of heroin. I end up, staying with my mother, and her and I really grew close together. And I just remember our bond was so strong. I mean, we really loved each other. We were friends. I mean, it was just an amazing relationship that we had. And when I was 13 years old, I remember just seeing her in the restroom over and over again. I mean, it was just, I would just see her just spend hours upon hours sitting in the restroom. So I remember one day I ended up picking the bathroom lock, and I remember just busting into the restroom, and I remember seeing my mom sitting on the toilet with a needle in her arm and shooting up. Everything was normal, everything was fine. And in that moment that I found out the truth, in that moment when I realized really who she was, it was hard for both of us to understand. She didn't know how to handle the fact that I knew. And I remember just our relationship was not the same. And so I remember my mom, she put me in my room and she yelled at me, and she told me that if I told anybody what was going on, that she would beat me. And I remember her literally putting a child lock on the inside of my door so I couldn't get out of my own room. And to punish me, she turned the breaker off to where I had no electricity in my room, and just different things, because she was so scared that I was gonna get the word out that she was doing this. And so I remember going back and just arguing with my mother, and I remember looking at my mom in the face, and I told my mom, I said, "If you love me, you will stop doing drugs." And I remember her looking at me and tears coming down, and she looks at me and she says, "Kyle, I cannot stop doing this. I'm in too much pain." I looked at her and I said, "Mom, I effing hate you." And I remember she started tearing up, and I walked into my room, and I remember going back to sleep. Around 9 a.m. I woke up and I looked down the hallway and I could see my mom's feet laying on the bed, and I remember just feeling that something was wrong. And so I started walking to her bedroom. And the closer and closer I got to her, the more and more I realized that something was wrong. And so I remember seeing her face down on her bed, and I remember seeing a Kleenex in her right hand. And I remember kind of grabbing her arm and shaking her, trying to wake her up. And I remember it just felt different. She was colder than normal. She was a little bit stiff. And so I remember then realizing, I think my mom is dead. And so I jumped on the bed and I started shaking her, and I was screaming and I was saying, "Mom, wake up. Mom, wake up." And I remember just realizing that she was gone. I remember this one officer standing up, and he was grabbing his handcuffs, and he literally says, we need to hold you because the story's not lining out. And so I remember that I'm sitting here, and all in one day I've lost my mother. All in one day I'm being blamed for my mother's death. Nobody is understanding what's going on. And until the autopsy came back is when everyone finally realized what was happening. I remember sitting at her funeral and just looking at the casket and just being in denial that this is my mother laying here in the casket, that not only do I don't have a father, but now I'm sitting here without a mother. I started to become bitter, and I closed myself off to the entire world because I felt like they had no idea what I was going through, and I really felt alone. I felt like nobody else will ever be able to understand really what I'm going through. And the people who want to give me advice, who haven't been through it, I didn't want to hear anything they had to say. And so all through my teen years, it was this battle in my life of how can I fulfill this void that I have. And so I did literally what everybody else was doing. I was on drugs, and I would drink almost every single night. And I even got a job at a strip club, and I was a bouncer, and I was making a lot of money. And I came to this point where I realized that I was still empty. Right before I walk into this strip club to go and bounce, I realized that there's so much more to life than this, and that I didn't have to utilize my past to push me even further down, but I could utilize my past to be able to push me forward and to be able to go and help others that are going through the exact same thing that I've gone through. And so that was the moment where I realized that there's actually something to live for. Now I have the opportunity to care for children who have lost their mother or their father. Now I have this opportunity to feed children who went hungry. Now I have this incredible opportunity of loving people in circumstances when they don't necessarily want the love, but I have this incredible opportunity to love them through their trials. It's amazing to me to see how my past is now the very flame and fire behind what I'm doing now in my nonprofit. And now that is the very reason why I fight for them every single day. If I could look back at that 13-year-old and speak to him, I would tell him, number one, you have got to put yourself in the middle of a community where people speak life into you, where people believe in you, where people want to do nothing but push you forward. And I would tell that 13-year-old that there is no other hope for you other than the hope of Jesus. And I know that sounds cliche, and I know that we hear this 24/7, but there's a difference between knowing God and actually having an experience with God. And that is what has changed my life, is not just knowing, but actually experiencing the love of Christ. And those two things are the two things that has literally changed my life. My name's Kyle Ewald, and that's my fight.
Thanks for watching this week's Know the Fight. And remember, if you have a battle that you're in the middle of and you feel like you're about to fail, if you feel like you're at your wits' end, reach out and talk to somebody that will listen and help you in that journey. And if you have a story that you want us to tell, contact us at knowthefight.com and we'll get it out there.